Hello everyone, and welcome to How to Use Ayurveda to Accelerate Your Wellness Career. So great to see a lot of people on the call today. We had over 1,000 people register. So to me, that means that we're interested. We're interested in how to use Ayurveda to accelerate our yoga career. I just want to dive right in. I'm Kate Stillman. I founded Yoga Healer in 2002. I have a massive penchant for really community wellness and planetary wellness. If you're on the slides, you can see my newest recruit on my invasive green smoothies. I had a garage sale, and there's one of my neighbor friends brought her 18-month-old, and she's sucking down a green thistle smoothie right there in the picture. And what I want to talk about today is really looking at our wellness careers and looking at how we use Ayurveda for both community impact, that we actually like our neighbors get healthier, and also for income, so that we have the kind of lifestyle that really suits who we are as wellness experts, that we're, walking the talk, so to speak. And also that really opens us up into the more liberated path of a freedom-based lifestyle, if that's what we're after. So we're really living life on our own terms, as is always been a component of the yogic path. And really what that means to us is what we'll also be exploring today. So what you're going to learn today, the first thing is really 5 steps to use Ayurveda to accelerate your yoga career. The second thing is how to ignite your yoga students on the path to health evolution, right? So what is health evolution? How do you get someone healthier, faster, more awake, more connected, more in community, more in befriending the self? How do you do that in a way that's actually on fire and at an accelerated pace? I'll also let you know the one most important tweak you should be making to your yoga career path if you want to make a great living. What should receive the bulk of your attention, your energy, and your focus as you build your yoga career, because this is in so many ways about focus, about where we put our attention and what specific actions that we take. And lastly, you're going to learn how to refine your yoga career strategy to free up your time and explode your positive contribution to your community. And I know for all of us, it's not just a question of accelerating your yoga career for personal benefit. You wouldn't have been on the yogic path in the first place, right? So it's a given that you're motivated by positive contribution to your community, whether your community is, humanity at large, right? Whether it's like a global community, whether it's an online community, or whether it's your neighbors and the people that may be attending your yoga classes at your yoga studio. This is also for wellness experts. So if you're not a yoga teacher, but you're a massage therapist, or you're a Chinese medicine practitioner, another kind of body worker, a kind of fitness instructor, a Pilates instructor, et cetera, I think you're going to get a ton out of today's call. It really applies to anyone that's in the more holistic wellness field. I do have a number of allopathic doctors and nurses who work with me as well, and they find this super useful. They're usually allopathic doctors and nurses who are frustrated with the model and frustrated with the impact that they can have on their patients. So anyone in the wellness field, I think, is going to get a lot out of today. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story here and how why I'm behind the mic, why there's over 1,000 people that sign up for the free calls that I give, and kind of what's going on around here. So back in 2001, when I actually secured the domain yogahealer.com, I was becoming certified as an Ayurvedic practitioner and as a yoga teacher. And over the next decade, I put in basically 10,000 hours. Anyone who's a fan of Malcolm Gladwell and The Tipping Point knows about the 10,000 hour rule. To actually get competence in something, you need to actually put in a lot of hard work and some serious time. And so I really did that between 2001 and 2011. And in the process, I realized that the model was all messed up. Yoga teachers didn't know what they should know from Ayurveda. Ayurvedic practitioners really didn't know how to access the yoga community, and so they often just totally failed at having a practice. Most of my friends from that are Ayurvedic practitioners are basically living slightly above the poverty line. They enjoy their lives, they have an amazing life, they have incredible health, but they haven't learned how to tap into the booming yoga market. They haven't really figured out how to have a great career. And what I found was that there was this entire lack of prosperity within most of, with what was happening with most of my colleagues. I found out that, in retrospect, I knew a lot about Ayurveda and a lot about yoga, and I followed the way my teachers taught me. And no one really knew how to cross the bridge between the popularity of yoga and the unpopularity but amazing effectiveness of Ayurveda. And I was in that group. I mean, I was getting by in my practice. I had a few wealthy clients that really helped pave the way for me to continue to get amazing education. I would take out all the money I'd make and basically plow it back in to my own learning to study with the best of the best that I could find in yoga and Ayurveda and enlightenment. And later, in business and online community building. But basically in that time I was getting by, but it was nothing special or super dynamic. And at one point I was realizing that I was just totally pulled into technology. Like I got it that like technology was going to help me so much. I wanted to write my newsletter. I did start a newsletter on Constant Contact back in 2002, which is or maybe 2001. I'm not actually sure the date, but it's a really, really long time ago. And I kept being pulled into how do I reach more people? How do I wake more people up to the simplest things they can be doing with Ayurveda to accelerate their wellness? And so I found when I was working with clients one-on-one or rushing off to teach a yoga class that it didn't feel like the best use of my time. I felt like also that with my Ayurveda clients that I couldn't really help them with this one-on-one model. I really wanted to create a dynamic group program for people to get what they needed from Ayurveda to accelerate their wellness path. But I delayed year after year in making their program. And no one else was really doing it at the time. There wasn't an example to follow of these people teaching these really great, how to implement Ayurveda to accelerate your wellness. And there wasn't anyone teaching that to yoga teachers, how to use Ayurveda to accelerate your wellness career. There was none of that going on, let alone any really online courses at the time. There were very, very few during this decade. So anyways, I knew what I wanted in the program, but I didn't know how I would go about it. I didn't know how to get it filled, but I kept noticing I was just pulled into the web, that I was continuing to want to connect with people via my newsletter, via my website, via workshops I was starting to teach around the United States at various yoga studios. And there was this weird crux of I was teaching what my teachers taught me, which was way too formal and way too detailed and way too esoteric for most yoga students. My students would be but I'm constipated. And I'd be going off into some, into the 3 doshas and, the 20 gunas and on. And they're just but I'm constipated, And it was what I found is that there just wasn't, the way that I was taught Ayurveda wasn't actually very helpful to my yoga students. It was fairly, and this is a stretch for me to say, helpful to the people who were visiting me one-on-one as an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner. But even then, it wasn't even that effective. I couldn't figure out how to bridge this gap between this massive popularity in yoga, this massive unpopularity in Ayurveda, these amazing, practices that I was doing that I was noticing the difference in my own health and subtle body anatomy and all that. And how was I going to get this so that the yoga students could really tap into it to accelerate their own wellness path and their own awake living path? And so what happened was I started to go online, and some of you may have actually come in here through the Living Ayurveda course, which I started teaching in 2008, or the Yogi Detox, which I started teaching in 2002, or Healthier Hormones Community, which I believe is 3 years old at the point, or the business course, which I believe is 5 years old at this point. So you may have come in through one of these online courses, but really what I've done most recently is develop this course called Body Thrive, which is a 10-week transformational course based on the habits of Ayurveda. And I created Yoga Health Coaching, which is a 15-month certification training that teaches yoga teachers and wellness experts how to bring their students through Body Thrive, how to bring them through those 10-week transformational habits course, right? That's all based on the habits of Ayurveda. It's all based on habit change evolution. It's all based on evolutionary group dynamics. So how the most enlightened people connect, basically. Right? So what I did is I said, well, I basically said, like, screw the system as the way I was taught it, because it's not working. Like, my yoga students are totally pulled into this path with Ayurveda and getting the most basic things down, like, how do I relieve my constipation? How do I get enough sleep even though I have a really intense job and I'm raising 2 kids, right? Like, these real problems that Ayurveda is totally amazing with, right? So what I've done is I've created these programs. So the yoga health coaches teach more or less the 10-week program. I call it Body Thrive. They usually come up with their own name. And the results that we're getting are awesome, that these yoga teachers are increasing their income by having their students go through a transformational course based on the habits of Ayurveda. So their income's accelerating, the wellness path of their students is accelerating, and it's totally working. And for me, on kind of like icing on the cake of it all, is I get to live anywhere and help people attain their dreams, which is super fun. If you're looking at the slides, I'm on slide 8, where you can see I'm a total dork. That's me in my little aquatic outfit, living in Mexico and basically, living the life that I want. So what I want to do in this workshop is really tell you just these 5 steps on how I'm using Ayurveda to accelerate people's yoga careers. So I'm just going to go over step by step by step now that you get who I am and what we do around here. Okay? And then I also just wanted to introduce you very briefly to my dad. So some people are like, Kate, why are you so wired for like technology? Like, how come so many yoga teachers and so many Ayurvedic practitioners really resist technology, but you don't? So I just want to introduce you to my dad, because it all makes sense when you meet my dad. And he worked on mainframe computers before PCs existed. Okay, he's been retired forever. But back in the day, before there were computers that could basically you could put in your house, computers were like the size of a building, and he was working on those. And then with the invention of the PC, he started to build hardware and then software for PCs. And then he learned how to make deals and how you sell software and hardware. And then he learned how to manage companies that were selling software and hardware. So, you know what they say about apples not really falling far from the tree. I grew up in this kind of an atmosphere. I grew up with an international businessman in the computer technology industry. So it helped, there's a little edge in there, why I was tech friendly. My sister was on email back when, I think it was in 1993, when she had our family sign up for email. So we were sort of early adopters. So what I want to just distill before we jump into the actual 5 steps that you can use. 5 steps, right? These basically 5 ways you can use Ayurveda to accelerate your yoga career. I just want to tell you the most basic things that I figured out along this journey. And the first is that students need daily rhythms and habit change science more than specific information about their doshas, right? So instead of trying to help students learn, use Ayurveda in terms of hey, what's your constitution and all that, that is very much secondary to that our students, our communities, our population, our planet, right? We need to attune to the daily rhythms of the planet. What does that mean? The time cycles, how energy works, when to sleep, when to eat, how to digest, how to wind down, how to pulsate activity with non-activity, right? With rest. I think these super basic things that no one's doing because we all have ADD with our million devices, etc. So we need to understand the daily rhythms. And then we also need habit change science. And we're going to get into that quite a bit today of what is habit change science and why does it matter so much, right? Why do we have to understand not just what to do, but how humans actually change their habits? If we don't get that, forget it. And you guys, I could have you make a list right now of the top 5 things you should be doing, but you're not. And that just to emphasize my point, right? That's how this works. That's how human beings operate. We know things we should do and we don't do them. In Ayurveda, that's you could argue it's the number 1 cause of disease, prajnaparada, failure of intelligence, failure of learning from our past, right? So we need to know how to deal with that. And we need to be experts at how we navigate that. Okay, so the second thing that I learned is that yoga teachers and healers need a different business model than the sort of classes, workshops, retreats, one-on-one, or panchakarma clients, anything like that. We need a different business model for actually getting our students or clients on an accelerated wellness path. So how we're running our careers for most people out there that I work with, how people are running their careers is disadvantaging themselves and their students. So if you don't have a funnel, if you don't have a sales process, if you haven't become a master of sales, you're actually disadvantaging your students. Like you might say, well, I'm obviously disadvantaging myself. And yes, that would be true too. But because most of us are care oriented and care extends beyond ourselves, it actually sinks in. I find it's really a cool paradox. But we're disadvantaging our students for like on their wellness path by not having the right business model. Like let that sink in for a minute. Because that means that your job as a yoga teacher or as a wellness expert isn't just to be a great yoga teacher or a great wellness expert. It's really to be a great business owner, right? It's to understand how your clients commit to a very deep transformational process. And if you haven't mastered that, it's not just a problem for you and your income in the end of the day and the, retirement account, et cetera. It's a problem for your career, for who you're serving, for the kind of impact that you're having. So what's possible, right? This just kind of points to what's possible is that you could be helping your students or your clients more. Like you could help them actually attain what they're looking for through you more, whether that's weight loss, whether that's better sleep, whether that's awake living, like living a really truly like awake evolved life, right? Whether it's just family harmony that they're looking for because they're really struggling at home. But you could be helping your students more if you knew the basics of Ayurveda and habit change science. And what's also possible for you is that you could probably be making a heck of a lot more money. Right. And I know some of you are not financially motivated at all. Some of you don't need, it's really interesting for me with working with a number of clients over a number of years is like some people are incredibly financially motivated. I'm one of them. I'm very financially motivated. I love to exchange value in the marketplace. Right? I love that. I love to know like every year, like how much value am I exchanging in the marketplace? Like real number value. For me, that's super interesting because that means the more money I'm exchanging in the marketplace, the more impact I'm having on a very measurable level, right? So for me, that's helpful. For some people, it's not. And either way, if you're driven by impact or you're driven by income or you're driven by both like I am, and you see them as interconnected, either way, you just want to know where. Where are you motivated? At the end of the day, where is your motivation going to come from? Like, what are you really in it? Like deathbed perspective. Like, how do you want your life to have been lived? You got to know that. Because at some point, as we go through these 5 steps, you're going to be like, oh, that looks hard, right? So you got to know what's going to get you through the hard part. All right, so let's go through this. So we're going to go now through the 5 steps to accelerate, the 5 steps on how to use Ayurveda to accelerate your wellness career. So the first step is kind of obvious. Like you have to be the master of your own daily rhythm, right? If what I said back in, what I learned, right, was that we need to be attuned to daily rhythm more than anything. So we need to be the master of our own daily rhythm. Does that mean we need to be doing it perfectly, that we need to basically be living a perfect picture lifestyle day in and day out? No, not in my experience. We don't. We need to, it's like that 80% rule. Like we really got to know what we need to be doing 80% of the time so that we can just be in flow, so that we feel rested, we feel motivated. We know why we do our practices because they optimize our life. Right? So we need to be in that flow of awake living and in the experience of like my life is optimized based on the micro choices that I make regarding resting, regarding eating, right? Nutrifying, you could say, digesting, absorbing, eliminating, right? The pulsation between silence and the sort of noisiness of life. We need to have that dialed between serenity and busyness. So in Ayurveda, like honestly, like one of the most simple teachings is that like toxins are real. Ama is real. And what ama is stuff that's not digested physically, mentally, or emotionally. And if you don't have enough like silence in your life, if you don't have enough serenity built into your daily rhythm, if you don't have time to digest what you've eaten, if you don't have time to rest after really putting it out there, there's a problem, right? Because that is going to sludge your system. That's going to create junk in your trunk, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, right? Due to lifestyle. So the first thing we need to do is like basically clean up our own act, like really get dialed in with the Ayurvedic daily rhythm, the Dinacharya. I'll post some links to this. After the call, you'll get an email with the different links, but there's a really simple like checklist for the Ayurvedic daily rhythm. You can also just Google Dinacharya, Dinacharya. So once we get that, the rhythm, the daily rhythm is like the number one thing that is going to enable us to accelerate our yoga career, our wellness career, right? Like if we're the master of our own day, we're going to be able to take our career to the next level. Ayurveda basically gives us the checklist of what we need to be doing in order to have optimal energy, right? In order to have optimal brain power. Now, for me, like energy is a big deal. Brain power and mental clarity is huge. It's huge. If I'm not like thinking clearly, I'm not going to choose the right actions to be doing, right? Both the actions in my kitchen, in my bathroom with my child, like raising my child, right? But also the actions of like, what should I be doing when I go to work, right? Like and that real income and impact, like what should I be doing? There's so many different things to be doing. So mental clarity is huge. If we don't have that sharpness, that optimal mental clarity, it means there's ama, and we need to address that. Now, the more we get become the master of our own evolution, right? It starts to be much easier to get why, oh my gosh, my students need this, my clients need this, my patients need this. So let's just talk a minute about why Dinacharya is hard. Why is the daily rhythm so hard in the modern age? You know, there's a few challenges with it. First of all, most people live with other people, right? So it's not just like you changing for yourself, but you live with other people. And your students and clients and patients also live with other people. And those other people may be very out of sync with nature's rhythms. So it's not just the individual, right? Like now we're getting into like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I can't, it's not just about knowing to go to bed early and wake up early and to hydrate and poop and breathe and move and open the subtle body and meditate and then eat something that has a lot of nutrients in it that's perfect for our, digestive fire, right? Like those things are huge and important. And if we have that knowledge, awesome. But then when like nobody else in the household is doing that or no one else in our peer group is doing that, hard, so hard. Okay. The second challenge with why Dinacharya is hard is that most people just don't know how to actually change habits, like including most yoga teachers and Ayurvedic practitioners I work with. I was recently talking to another Ayurvedic practitioner and I'm like, isn't it amazing we never studied like how to help people change their habits? Like we knew what they should be doing and we would tell them what to do, but we didn't actually really study how to help people change their habits. And there's a lot to it because if you want to change your habits, you're changing who you are. Your identity shifts, right? And if you're not comfortable with that new identity, there's no way those habits are going to stick. So there's a lot to the habit change science. It's so cool and it's so good to know, the depth of what we do know as human beings that are like really waking up to lifestyle design. Okay, the third challenge is why Dinacharya is hard, why the daily rhythms are hard to adopt, is that most people don't invest in the results that they want from it, right? And so what that means is this. It's like if you're like really invested in getting enough sleep, like how are you going to show that? How are you going to put your money where your mouth is? And most people don't. They just have this idea of like, oh, I should be getting more sleep. Or, oh, I should wake up earlier and meditating. But there's not a structure for them to invest in that change, so it doesn't happen. So one suggestion to start off just with your students right now is just start by attuning your students to getting well rested. Like this is really the first stage I find of change is like you need brain power, right? You need body power behind it all. So just start talking about like the importance of getting good rest. If you're personally not getting good rest, like pay attention. Get good rest. Go to bed before 10. Have a better bedtime routine. Get 8 hours of sleep. Like that number 8 is magic, right? And for anyone who's done the like 6 to 7 program, like 8 is the magic number, I don't usually worry about oversleeping. I usually have like 1 out of 200 clients that is oversleeping and getting like more of like the 9 to 10. And if that's you, like wake up. Don't get too much sleep. Wake up and live. There's a lot going on out here. So start with getting your students well rested. So focus on having them take personal responsibility for themselves, being well rested for their life so they can show up fully in their life. All right. So the problem often isn't that we don't know what to do, but we just don't know where to begin. We don't know how to begin. And that's, and that's really the crux with step one is like, well, actually it just leads right into step two, which one of the best things that you can do for yourself is get in a group of other people, right, that are working on daily rhythm. I have Body Thrive groups. I'm not here to, try to promote my Body Thrive course, but like there's groups out there. But getting in a group is so important. You need to start with yourself. You need to be in a group that's focused on health evolution, that's focused on the habits of Ayurveda. If you really want to use Ayurveda to accelerate your wellness career, you got to get the basics like dialed in for maximum energy, for maximum brain power, for optimal digestion and elimination, right? So there's no like sludge in your system, but that your subtle body is wired, right? Like wired for energy, wired for activity, wired for connectivity, so that you can really help people. So the conversation needs to live in your outer world, like the world that's happening between you and other people, as much as it does in your inner world, which is the conversation that's happening between your ears or between your head and your heart or between your heart and your body. So the conversation needs to live in your day-to-day conversations with other people on health evolution, on the habits of Ayurveda, on getting enough sleep, on optimizing digestion, on all that, right? So that it can actually start to become embedded in your inner world. The other thing why it's so important to get in a group is you need to really know the real issues that people deal with when they're trying to align their lives on a higher level, when they're trying to align their bodies at a higher vibration. Like you need to know the real things that come up. Say you have kids, but you don't know what it's like to not have kids. Like the people that don't have kids, they're going to have different issues than you have. Say you don't have kids and there's people in your group that have kids that are, this group that's totally working on the 10 habits of Dinacharya, the basic lifestyle shifts of Ayurveda, right? Just by understanding that different types of people have really different issues that come up when they're trying to align their lives at a higher level, that's going to give you so much insight in how to help your students, because you're going to notice something comes up, some really hard lifestyle change comes up from someone who's really not like you. And for you, you're just like, oh my gosh, that's cake. That's totally obvious. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. I can't do it. And they're in tears, right? And then you see them work through a group, work through habit change science, work through the transformation to get to the other side of that. And you see them have this breakthrough, and you see the experience of revelation, for like how much energy there is in that when their body's operating on a higher energetic level. And you see their experience of confidence in themselves, this deeper trust in their body, and you know how they got there because you witnessed it. That's why it's like not enough to just do it alone, but it's why you need to be in a group. The other thing about groups is if you really show up in a group fully, you have to be humble and vulnerable. Right? Like actually it's part of all the Yoga Healer course commitments now. Like in any of our course, it's like you will show up in a way that's actually like vulnerable, like not as the know-it-all, not as the person hiding in the closet. Like you're going to show up just as you are, because we all have challenges. And the more we get this and the more we're in it, like really in it, exposed, the more we'll actually be able to lead our students through groups in that same way, where we kind of get rid of all the projection stuff, right? We kick out the pedestal from underneath our own feet. And this enables such a greater acceleration on the wellness path. It's really an amazing thing when we can be both an expert and be humble and vulnerable, and we can experience our own breakthroughs, right? That we too are on this evolutionary path all the time. It doesn't stop. It doesn't end. It just keeps going. I was talking with one of my yoga health coaches yesterday. It looks like, oh, yeah, and you're on the call today. Hi, Batul. And I was saying, like, we just need to pause for a minute and see how much, like, your life has changed in the past year, like, how much work you've done. Because the problem is that, like, evolution just keeps going, right? So we always see, like, the next horizon. And we have to create these artificial stops sometimes and be like, oh, my gosh, wow, stop, reflect. Wow, this is where I am. So we need to do that for our own breakthroughs. We need to do that in terms of witnessing others' breakthroughs. And the benefit of really getting yourself in a group where you're working on your own daily rhythm, you're working on your own habit evolution, right, is that if you show up vulnerable and humble, you will experience a breakthrough. And then you'll be so much more awake to the power of what can happen for your students, and you'll be able to inspire them. Okay, so one of the other challenges that happen with getting in a group is that often it's hard to find a group that's just as committed as we are, or even more so. Right? So this is interesting. Like when you're working with, within your own health evolution, you need to be with your equals. Like you need to be with people that really get it and are at the level where you can have dynamic friction. Right? So finding a group that's as committed as you are, even more committed than you are, like that's sometimes a great place to be, where you're just like, climbing, like struggling to keep up. Like it's a great place to be. I was actually going to call my kids' gymnastics coach and be like, can we get her in a higher level group? Because I want her to be with students that are just like going to kick her butt into competitive gear. It's like that. I always found that. And I was a soccer goalie, and I would actually practice with the men's teams and play the games with the women's teams. Because being in an environment where you have to just like push a little harder, it just accelerates. It really accelerates where you can go in your life. So you need to be in a group, right? Because we know that groups evolve faster than individuals. So for you to really get your own self aligned with Ayurveda, the daily rhythms, that's going to be, these first two parts are so important. Like it's all about working on you. Now let's start talking about the next 3 steps, right? Which is all about you and your career. So the first part is really like, if we look at it Ayurvedically, it's just like earth element, water element, right? Earth element is like, get grounded in yourself. Number 2, like get connected. Water is the element of connectivity. Get connected. Now, the third part, this is where it gets fiery, right? Coach your own group. That's step 3. Then now you know what it's like. You know the rhythms. You're doing it. You're living it. Not perfectly, right? Because perfect is not reality, right? But you're on it. You're living it. You're stepping into deeper integrity. You're owning up to what does not work in your life. Now you get to coach your own group. And coaching your own group, like this is where it's like, oh my gosh, like, am I qualified? How am I going to do this? How am I going to help other people? So there's some certain things that come up when you want to start to pull a group together and bring people through an experience. And one of the first challenges is you need to build a container for your students to invest themselves. Because if the people aren't really committed and you're just, you're kind of putting a little, like really low cost group together where people can kind of just drop in and drop out, they're not going to be a good representation, because they're not going to like basically put the pedal to the metal, right? When a going gets tough, they're not going to get going, right? They're going to just like wander off. So you won't really have the experience of the potency of how this can accelerate your yoga career if you don't have a group where you're actually able to accelerate their wellness path. So that whole part, and we're going to get into this a little bit more about the whole investment part of it. The second challenge is really building the structure for your students to engage to get results. What are the results? What are the results that they want? We need to know that up front. Like, what's going on? Do they need more sleep? Like, do they have sleeping issues? Are they not sleeping through the night? Are they waking up 3 times in the night? Do they have hot flashes? Right? Do they have kids waking them up in the middle of the night? Like, what is going on? Like, what are their problems? Like, what is going on? What kind of results do they want? Do they want to feel well rested? Or do they have digestive issues? Or do they have an autoimmune issue, or their life's falling apart? Are they depressed? Are they on anti-anxiety meds? Like, what is going on? We need to know what results they want, and then we need to build a structure for them to engage to get the results. Another challenge that arises with putting a group together and coaching our own group is really this shift. Most of us as yoga teachers are actually trained to be process-oriented. So what does that mean? Like, we're interested in the process of evolution and less in terms of being like results-focused. So are we more process-oriented, or are we more results-focused? And results-focused is more masculine. Process-oriented is more feminine. Like, do we see the journey of yoga as like moving down a river, or do we see it more as climbing a mountain? Results-focused is like, let's get to the top of the mountain. Like, let's get you sleeping through the night. That's how we'll know we're successful. Right? And so there's a shift in there. Both are so important. Process orientation is super important. But if we're too heavy in process orientation, right? And we're too into, just like the moment to moment experience without seeing where we're going and whether we're getting there in real time, right? Whether we're helping the person get to their desired end result in real time, then it's a problem. And there's no way that I can figure out that you can help really yourself accelerate your career without being results focused. So when I talk to my clients, I'm like, what are your numbers? Like, how are we doing? How many students in what course? What transformation did your students have? Let's measure it. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Measurables there. So we need to shift just like how we're operating our career to really, if we're going to coach our own group, we need to shift our language, how we speak, how we work with people to being more results focused. So one suggestion I have in this is just to start by opening up the conversation with your yoga students right now, or with your wellness clients, or with your patients. And there's this really great tip sheet, and I'll put this link again in the emails that we're going to send out. But yogahealthcoaching.com/better-career. So better-career. So yogahealthcoaching.com/better-career. There's going to be a polling worksheet that will just start to open a lot of these conversations with your students. Like, what results are you looking for? Like, how are you sleeping through the night? How is your digestion? Who has low energy today? Who has a tremendous amount of energy today? Like, this is the stuff that we want to know, and we want to start to see, like, what is going on with our students. We want to have a very intimate relationship with our students, our clients, our patients. We need to know what's going on in order to help them start to think about, like, oh, wow, what's possible for myself? So I just want to share a story of one of the yoga health coaches working with me, Shelley Aaron. Her website's rejuveclub.com. And this whole idea of like waking up our students on the path to health evolution is getting them committed and in a group. If you see on the slide there, Shelley actually being like held up by her students. And what she's found is that in shifting from she was basically like a fitness teacher, yoga teacher, who had basically like a drop-in, really cool experiential outdoor fitness class every morning in West Seattle, to actually shifting into a better business model where she could get the students that were really interested in wellness evolution to commit at a higher price point to being part of a group and having a deeper transformation. That what happened is that now these people are having such an amazing transformation. They're like this, like Shelley Aaron is like the most amazing person in their life. She changed her business model. She started coaching groups instead of having just these one-on-one drop in here, little one-on-one work there. And it's totally changed her income model, but it's also enabled her students to have a much deeper transformation. So when we get the power of groups and investment, it's huge. So now let's talk about step 4, which is how to get your students invested. So once we know how to coach a group, and we might do that through a pilot, right, or 2, right, then at some point what we're going to realize, or hopefully we've already realized, is that the investment that we make in our transformation guarantees how we're going to show up. So if you don't pay much for something, you won't get as much out of it. Like, that's just like this sort of rule of thumb. I posted on my yoga health coaching forum the other day, and the Yoga Healer Business Course forum the other day, like, how much money have you invested in your wellness? And the numbers were averaging around, in your wellness career, like in everything that you've learned, that you've signed up for, this training, that training, whether it's for career or individual, knowing that like we all get benefit from studying wellness as a career for our personal health. Right? Any of you who've been through yoga teacher training, like that did something for you too, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So how much have we actually invested in wellness wisdom? And the numbers, where they ranged from about, I think on the low end, we were at about 15,000. On the high end, we were at probably about 100,000. The average is maybe 30 to 40,000. And two, I have a more mature community. Like a lot of people that are actually in yoga health coaching are over 60. Like, so there's people that have invested over time. It's not just people that are like 30 and starting out who've only invested like $5,000, right? So I just naturally attract a more mature community, which FYI, that's where those numbers are coming from. Okay. So we've invested that much, and then like what? And then I asked a second question: is like, what would you trade that for? And like the answers were like, I wouldn't trade for anything, right? Like I know how to have a body. Like I know how to operate in this like whole higher level vibration thing. Like I would not trade that for who I was before I knew all this. So we've invested a lot of money. How do we get our students invested in what they actually want, right? The results that they actually want. And you know, what I want to point you to, like on the slide that I have is like two guys talking at an investment conversation. Like imagine you're talking with a financial advisor. Like that's what an investment conversation looks like. It looks like two people talking about numbers. So if we're going to use Ayurveda to accelerate our yoga career, at some point we're going to have some very serious conversations, some very deep conversations about what the person wants and how they're going to invest. How are they going to invest in what they want? Because everyone is investing in something, right? Some people are investing their evenings watching TV. Other people invest their evenings learning things that are really helpful for them in their life. Some people invest money in a 401k. Other people invest money in preventative medicine so that they basically won't lose their house when they're older due to health issues, which is a massive issue in the United States, right? So having an investment conversation for both of you to help them get their life aligned is super important. And then what are the numbers that you and your students need to know to help them invest in their long-term health? I'm going to repeat this. Write this down. What are the numbers that you and your students need to know to help them invest in their long-term health? Like, what are those numbers? So if we think about it, like to me, like the number one investment question is, what is the end result worth to you? What is a good night's sleep consistently worth to you? For someone with irritable bowel syndrome, who's like running to the bathroom every, just like every hour and can't leave, just feels really uncomfortable leaving their house and going out to eat or meeting friends and blah, 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 right? Like what is the end result? Like what is good digestion? Like what would that be worth to them? You're not saying you're going to cure their digestive issues or their IBS. You're just asking like, what is it worth to you? AKA, what is the end result worth to you is also like, how bad do you want it? Because if they don't know how bad they want the results, right? The results that we find people get day in and day out from the 10 habits of Ayurveda, right? From Dinacharya, from making those changes. And I actually did have, I want to see if Jackie's on. Jackie, yeah, I think you're here. Had a client that had IBS and she was like, I don't know. She's a yoga health coach and she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to cure IBS. I'm like, don't worry, just walk her through the habits. Let's see what happens. And the person's like having amazing breakthroughs in her lessening of IBS symptoms just from the 10 habits. This is how Ayurveda works. It's basic. It's fundamental. It's based on rhythm. It's based on attuning to nature's rhythms. So if we don't know what a consistent good night's sleep is worth to our students, we won't be able to help them when the going gets rough. So in lifestyle up-leveling, it is always going to get rough. Rough is not an issue. This is why the yogis call it tapas. What is tapas? It's the fire that stands between you and your own evolution. It stands between you and a higher, more awake, more interconnected life. Anyone who studies integral theory and spiral dynamics knows that the spiral of evolution does not end. We get more connected, more intelligent, more awake, more able to see the whole. It doesn't end, right? So what stands between us and the next level, that fire, that's what we need to know. Like, what is it worth to get to the other side? So the investment, the what is it worth, the money, the bottom line, that needs to be established before you work with your students in this way. Otherwise, you shoot both you and your client in the foot before you even take your first step together. So again, write down, I need to know what the transformation is worth in a dollar amount to my students. This is so hard, you guys. Like, everyone gets tripped up here because it's like, oh my gosh, money issues. We'll talk about money issues in a second. But write it down. I need to know what the transformation is worth in a dollar amount to my students. Okay, so now let's talk about step number 4, which is when we really look at getting your students invested and what this looks like. Some of the issues that come up is that we might be uncomfortable asking questions to our students. Like, we might be really uncomfortable talking about investment stuff in general with ourselves, with our spouse, with our parents, with our friends, with our students. Like, right? If we have issues around that, they're going to come up in this part. So we may also have personal money issues that we haven't dealt with. And another challenge is we might not be investing in our own future in a way that's strategic and analytical, and this just brings it up for ourselves. And I've seen this with so many students and clients. And I just want to share, too, from yoga health coach Natasha. She says that having investment conversations with my students has brought up all my money and self-worth issues. I am so glad to be dealing with them head on now when I can dramatically change my future earning trajectory. So this is a big thing. Like, there's a reason that a lot of wellness experts and yoga teachers have a desire for an income and a lifestyle that they're not achieving. And what happens with these investment conversations, with these investment questions, right, is that it helps us move through that fire, that top us within ourselves. Okay, so just a quick review on how we're using yoga to accelerate our yoga career, our wellness career, is just a quick review. Like, number one thing was be the master of your own daily rhythm. The second step was getting in a group. The third step was coaching your own group. The fourth step, once we're comfortable coaching a group, is really dealing with investment, because there's no way we're going to, basically get our students more invested and help our own bottom line at the end of the day without having a really intentional process around that. And really, actually, honestly, becoming a master of selling our wares, right? If your ware is transformation, how are you going to sell that ware? Okay. Now, step 5 is deliver and over-deliver. So I just want us to pause for a moment and feel your care. Like, feel how much you really care. You're a yoga teacher or a wellness expert because you want your current and future students to truly wake up and live. You want your students to experience the same wellness breakthroughs that you've lived into. You don't stand for complacency or delusion or the status quo. You know we can all evolve. And you've made up your mind that you've made your life a stand for the evolution of humanity. And once your students are engaged and committed and invested, you can deliver and over-deliver. You can guide them to where they want to go. So you may see the potential in your students that they don't see in themselves. Sorry, let me say that again. You may see the potential in your students that they don't see in themselves. And I just want to see that. Like, does that happen? Press 1 if that's true for you. Like, you see potential in people that they don't even think is in their reality. This happens to me all the time where, I'll be talking to someone who really wants to accelerate their wellness career. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could turn that, I could help you turn that into a 6-figure business or a $250,000 business in like X amount of time. And they just don't see the potential for themselves. Right? And it's such an interesting thing. Like, when we really see the next phase, the next level, right? And that sense of like, wow, if the person were engaged and committed, what we could do with them. Yeah. And most people feel that way. Yeah, exactly. We're really attuned to that. We're really attuned to the evolution of others. So there's a few challenges with delivering. One is that roadblocks will appear that stop your students' progress. Like, first of all, they might not invest, right? So they might not even enable you to deliver. And if you try to deliver without investment, forget about it. You're just like, it's not going to work over time. You'll be broken. You'll notice it's not that effective making change. One of my yoga health coaches was asking me like, oh, my father has, all of these issues. And when he comes, I just give him these like really small suggestions. Try this and try that. And I'm like, well, he's not invested. It's not going to work. There's no way for you to actually exchange, have like a true flow of transformation going back and forth, unless the structure is set up right. So roadblocks will appear. When our people are invested, roadblocks are still going to appear. And a lot of those roadblocks happen not because they don't know what to do, but are issues with more like the not having the habit evolution science, not being in a community where they can actually see other people changing and growing and get inspired by other people and be coached through the issues that are arising in real time. So another challenge with delivering is that if these roadblocks appear and you don't have training in habit evolution science, like, it's just knowing the basics of Ayurveda is not going to be enough. And the third challenge is that most people that I know in yoga and Ayurveda and healing sciences aren't actually they're not actually trained in evolutionary group dynamics, like how to get students committed and supporting each other in an evolutionary dynamic. And there's actually, just like there's strategy in Ayurveda, there's strategy in habit evolution science, there's also strategy in evolutionary group dynamics. And so what happens, like, just to ground this for you guys, like some students may actually hinder the group. Like, you ever have a student in class that actually like hinders like the class? Like, you need to know how to pull that person in, like how to really get that person to actually align into the potential for the group. And there's some really specific technique in order to do that. All right, so good coaching, accountability, Kaizen or small changes, habit change science, group commitments, evolutionary group dynamics, all of that enables you to over-deliver beyond their expectations. And then your students will truly accelerate on their wellness evolution path. Okay, so there's a really specific method to doing this. It works, it's proven, it's awesome. And I just want to read a testimonial from Jackie, who is here today. She says, "I'm so glad I learned the business model behind yoga health coaching. My students are so much more committed. The results we're getting in my coaching groups blow me away. The weight loss, lessening of symptoms like autoimmune issues, it's astounding. I'm so thankful to be able to help my students like never before." And that's really what's possible, right? So we're able to move people through a deeper transformation, and they're able to invest in their own transformation through us at a higher price point. So we're able to have the kind of income that we want for retirement or for the kind of lifestyle we want today. And this is, to me, this is like basically a win-win for everybody. So I'm taking 25 people into yoga health coaching starting June 30th. And what I want you to tell you now is just a little bit about what it's about. And again, like there's the sense that I have with a lot of people of like, I could figure this out. And it's kind of tricky, So what I want to do now is just really outline how we do what we do and what yoga health coaching is about. So the first thing is that you actually end up in a group for 10 weeks with a yoga health coach, that you are in what I call a Body Thrive group, right? You're in a group where you are working on your own daily rhythms. In a group, you're learning about habit change science, you're learning group dynamics, like you're able to witness other people's roadblocks, other people's transformations, right? And you have a whole experience there. The second part is you learn how to coach groups and you learn how to coach one-on-one. The third part is you learn how to enroll and get your students to invest at a higher price point. Fourth part is you learn how to build systems around a better business model. And the fifth is designing the life and career that you want. So let me just break this down a little bit, because the first part is like really learning firsthand what it's like to have a coach and be a student of a yoga health coach. Like if you want to coach groups of your students at a higher price point through a deeper transformation, you have to have had that same experience yourself. It's like you would never teach a yoga class without having done a lot of yoga. It wouldn't make any sense. You would never sign up for yoga teacher training, I would hope, until you really got like really into yoga. So I just want to read from one of our yoga teachers who's just gone through Body Thrive with her yoga health coach. And, again, a very accomplished yoga teacher. She says, "These 10 weeks have been amazing. I've learned so much and have been able to integrate. I've learned to surrender to what it is to be in a more fluid life and have more awareness of my own body, routines, and environment. The challenges have made me stronger and have helped me see and accept my weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but also see my strengths and my reactions. I have so much fun learning and observing myself. Getting to know you all in the group and share this journey is a blessing. Let's move on together." And that's from Emery in Spain, who's a yoga health coach trainee, and that's upon completing her Body Thrive program with yoga health coach Anna Well, who's an Ayurvedic practitioner and yoga teacher who's in the yoga health coaching training. So what I find so amazing is like, no matter how advanced the people are, the yoga teachers or wellness experts are when they start, they get so much out of Body Thrive because of the, not just knowing the nuts and bolts of Ayurveda and the daily rhythm, right? That's honestly the easy part. That knowledge is easy. It's the implementation. It's the habit change science. And it is honestly the group dynamics where we start to tap into a higher interconnected field, more of a we space with deep transformation. So the second part within yoga health coaching is learning how to coach the habits of Ayurveda, right? How to actually coach Dinacharya, how to build and lead dynamic groups. So you learn the habit evolution science right in there. You have to, because it's not just enough to know. So the habit transformation, Ayurveda, and dynamic group evolution. The third part is learning how to earn, because most people don't know how to earn that I work with. Like, they really don't know how to earn. They're coming in, they're saying like, I want to help change lives. And, and when we get into that part of the money part, it's like, oh, money's not that important, or, oh, I'm happy as I am. But like deep down, like, oh, I wish I was earning more or saving more for retirement. So learning how to enroll and getting your students to invest. I just want to read a few quotes from some yoga health coaches this year. One says, I had my first 5-figure month this January, thanks to working with Kate in yoga health coaching. Another, within a year of yoga health coaching, I'm on track to double my income. Another says, I have so much more confidence in my work, and it's helping me to get new clients. So the fourth part is systems. And this is the part where like most wellness experts are like, what's a system, right? So learning how to build systems around a better business model with marketing, accounting, client support, and even team management, so that you have an assistant helping you do all the stuff that you don't want to do, so that you can actually be working with your clients, right? Working at a higher price point, working with more people, or doing like what I do, which is like a lot of stuff for free, the podcast, the blog, even writing a book, which to me is basically like a very low price point thing. Right. All right. So then the fifth step is designing the life and career you want. Like that for when you get into the systems part and you've learned to earn and you're enrolling these dynamic groups and you're having 5-figure months, right? Now all of a sudden a whole other horizon opens up, which is like lifestyle design, career design, impact design. Like, what is most important from a deathbed experience that you leave? Like, you leave this life being like, wow, I really lived. Right. And for everyone, that's different. So what I find is like, for me, my personal lifestyle design is like, I love it that my students come to me. I live in beautiful places in Idaho and in Mexico. And, sometimes I have twice a year, I have retreats just for people in my groups, including yoga health coaching, to come and spend time and have an absolute up level in career and lifestyle and ways of connecting. So when you know what it is that, like, once all those systems are set, it opens up a whole other level of lifestyle. And when you have a better business model, just flat out, you make more money. And when you make more money, you have a lot more choice in what you want to do to live your dreams. And there's really, what I find so much is like, there's no one really stopping us but us. All right. So I just wanted to also share from Mark Holtzman, yoga health coach Mark Holtzman. Many of you might know him from Yoga Glow. He says, just 2 years ago, I considered myself a hatha yoga teacher. Now I'm a coach, and I'm able to help my students so much more. So if you want to be part of that next group of 25, the thing to do is to go to yogahealthcoaching.com/apply, APPLY, and you'll fill out an application, and you'll, after you have an application, you'll do an interview with Alex, and you'll basically, after you fill out the application, you'll get right onto Alex's calendar. Take your interview seriously. Like, you're going to have a deep dive discussion on where you want to go in your career, in your finances, where you want to go in your dharma, in your impact. And if it's a fit, we'll invite you into the next group. So I just wanted to share too, like, if you were to try to do this on your own, like, honestly, you couldn't figure it out. There's so many components that make this work. And it makes it work in real time. Like, people, they start yoga health coaching. It's a 15-month process. They're making their money back usually by month 6. I've had a number of students triple their investment by month 6, right? Like, this thing is designed to help you and your students. And it's crafted in a way that, like, just moves you through step by step with lots of support. There's also a super dynamic community component. Like, we have these meetups twice a year. You get invited, you come, and you get connected to the other people who are working through this process. And what I found is that the people in my groups have developed such amazing friendships and honestly, like, mastermind partnerships that will last them and support them in their career aspects for decades. Like, it just is so cool to see what happens when you have dynamic community support, right, on your career component of what you're doing with your life. So the other thing, and like trying to do this on your own, honestly, you'd get stuck in sales. Like, you would not become a master of sales. Like, it's really hard. Unless you already have a background in sales and know how to apply it to the wellness industry in the connection economy, like, forget about it. It's hard. And this is where, a lot of the coaching, we have weekly coaching to help people get through these roadblocks. The other thing is that if you were to do this on your own, your students would get stuck at the roadblocks and you'd end up wasting time and money. So if you want to go the more like clear, faster route, just have a conversation, go to yogahealthcoaching.com/apply. And that's it. I mean, that's really, as far as I know, as far as I've figured out in the last 15 years as an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner, as a yoga teacher, as someone with a very successful wellness business, that this is how to use Ayurveda to accelerate your yoga career. This is like all that I know. I hope you really take it in and study this. You should honestly watch this a few times. There's so much in here that I outlined, and it's really been my life's work to figure this all out and to have it work for people super successfully over time. So apply for yoga health coaching certification if you really want to get serious about increasing your income, increasing your impact. Like I said, I mean, this whole course is designed for people to increase their income $20,000 to $100,000 a year. Really, that number depends on where you're starting at. We're getting amazing results. I'm totally blown away by what the yoga health coach has accomplished in such a short period of time. It's a 15-month training. There's a special bonus to the first 10 applications, so get your application in, and if you're in the first 10, you're going to get some amazing rewards.